There's been a lot of interest in the raised bed that we did for $1 and how it's doing today. As you can see, obviously the mulch cloth is now deteriorating, falling apart some, and it's kind of broken apart. The soil is leaking out of the edges as we anticipated it would a year in, or this is slightly less than a year in, but it's been through the full winter season. We definitely still have area that has the ability to grow stuff in it, but it's definitely not as much of a raised bed as it was before. Now you see I've planted a couple. These are actually going to be Egyptian walking onions. It's actually a crop I'm very enthusiastic about. Normally you would plant them late in the fall, is my understanding, like you would garlic, and they'd come up in the spring. But mine really, you know, I got the seeds from someone online, and they aren't really seeds, they're the bulbs, and they didn't really take in the fall, so I saved some, and they actually sprouted themselves as spring came on and had little shoots on them. So now I have them planted, and we're hoping to have them grow over this season, and I'll probably not actually harvest anything until next spring. But I wanted to go ahead and show you this area. I think is going to be pretty good for having those. It's separate from my garden, so I don't have to worry about them spreading into the garden. And I think with those I might not even have to set up the water separately to this area. So anyhow, I know there was some concern, or actually I think a little bit of a debate, not a big one, but in the comments of that video regarding whether it was a good idea to have a very temporary bed. I think if you're just getting started, or if you really don't have the resources to go for a full bed, a $1 raised bed is a wonderful thing. And even for the experienced gardener that already is set up, I really like this opportunity to quickly and cheaply add another growing space that you might be able to do something experimental or something separated from the rest of your garden and not have to worry about breaking the bank to do it. I also think one could probably start a perennial bed this way. And so now what I would do here, if I had planted perennials that were getting their start here, would be just now remove all of the mulch cloth all the way around and actually put a wood chip mulch in above the perennial I had planted. And now I'd have a pretty good established perennial that has good rich compost all around it, and it really has a head start on what it's doing. But since today is such a beautiful day, it's actually about 70 degrees out here. It's really like the perfect weather, and it feels like spring. I'm going to go ahead and take you on a bit of a garden tour and show you some of the other stuff that's growing in our main garden too. And a brief aside before we get to the main vegetable garden tour, here's some spring daffodils in my front yard actually. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say we're going to do another seed giveaway. It's not going to be a big seed giveaway, but just when we get to 4,500 subscribers, as a little reward, we'll have a contest where 2 lucky subscribers who comment on the video will get 20 seeds apiece, or 20 different varieties of seeds apiece. We'll have a video that says what those varieties will be that we post when we hit that 4,500 subscriber mark. I just think we're on pace to get there fairly soon, so I wanted to give you a heads up about it. So I hope that you do enjoy the rest of this garden tour. Here we'll see some pea plants coming up. There I've got a couple actual clusters. I might have to thin a bit. And I believe I have 2 varieties planted here. One is an Alaska pea, and the other, I don't recall, but I'll write it below. Here are my chives, which are up and doing great. Let's go ahead and just pick one here and eat it. Tastes great. It has that good chive flavor. I think they're delicious to just eat fresh. And I'm very happy that they're thriving here. Then you'll remember when we planted out garlic last fall. And here are all those garlic bulbs that are doing a pretty good job. So this here is a plant I'm not sure you've actually seen on this channel before, but I've actually had it for a number of years. This is actually an Aronia berry bush. Now, the first year I got it, it was just like a cutting that I got from Baker Creek, and I planted it in an area that unfortunately had relatively low sun, I'm guessing is what the problem was, and so it never took off. And each winter I think it would either just die off or it would get eaten back by rabbits and other things that were foraging, and so it never had an opportunity to really grow. This year, last spring actually, I transplanted it into this pot here, and I hoped to kind of give it some TLC and keep it growing. And then I forgot to take it out of the pot over the winter, so I was very upset thinking that it was going to die off, because obviously when it's in a pot and you have hard freezes, sometimes that can really hurt a plant that otherwise would be cold tolerant. But this survived, and I'm very happy to see, that it's blossoming out again here in the winter. And so I plan to plant this in a much better area this year, actually in the ground, and see if we can't actually finally get this. I think this would be, it's either its third or fourth year. I'll have to go back and look, but I think I've had it for a while. It really should be to the point it would be producing great berries and everything, but it obviously isn't, and so I need to work on that. And this right over here is just a pea plant. I had been doing some work with peas, and apparently one dropped in there, or maybe I actually planted it. Yeah, I planted it in there. So I had planted a pea plant in there just for fun. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. So for several years I've had some rhubarb here that has never really thrived. I think I planted it in kind of poor soil, which obviously is never the ideal, particularly when you're dealing with perennials. I might throw some fertilizer on this thing and see if I can get it to kick up a bit. But if anyone else has some better suggestions, let me know. I've got this plant and then one more right over here as well, that both of them I'd like to do better than they are doing. And now we'll check on our asparagus. I've been waiting for our asparagus to come up because it's been a colder than normal winter. Sometimes I've actually gotten it up by the end of February. Now obviously it is early April, and so far it hasn't come up. But this is kind of our first real warm 70-degree springy day. So I'm optimistic. And let's see here. Indeed, we have our first asparagus shoot peeking out. So very excited by that. And I think on that note, that concludes our garden tour. So I appreciate you joining me on that. I hope we answered a little bit of questions about how that raised bed, the $1 raised bed, was doing. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please stay tuned for more updates on the garden this year. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe.